Namaste, friends. My name is Trevor Chaitanya, and my spiritual name from Yogi Bhajan was Pritam Hari Singh. I wanted to explore the concept of how to move forward in light of classical yoga. One of the big complicated issues that we're dealing with is Yogi Bhajan framed what yoga is to many of us, and then the community reinforced those ideas. The idea that Kundalini Yoga was secret, that it was separate from Hatha Yoga, and that he was the first one to share openly was a hook that was put into many of us to get us excited about the system. Like we then had something unique. And then the idea that we were now heading towards the Aquarian age and we were going to now be able to have access to this technology that was unlimited. Now, the big question I have is, how is technology being defined? I don't think anyone in the community really has a well laid out system of that. In the teacher training we run at Schoolcraft College, we relate to Vidyas, the sciences of yoga. Hatha Yoga is a yogic science. Ayurveda is a yogic science. They're time tested, they've been around for a long time, they have detailed language. We also use Western anatomy to help us understand what's going on with the body. We define things in two different ways. We look at how do things relate to the traditional goals of yoga, which is yoga chitta vritti nirodha. How do you still the mind? So that's one topic. The other topic is how do we relate to yoga for health, healing, and wellness? There's a lot of that going on in the West today. The two are not often the same thing. Sometimes there's an overlay, but often not. But we like to, when we analyze postures, when we talk about Western anatomy, when we talk about dosha, guna, vayu, koshas, all of those Ayurvedic-based systems to understand the human body, I always make it very clear to people this is different than the traditional goal of yoga, which is cessation of the mind. So, getting to the main point that I wanted to bring up today, because Yogi Bhajan framed our relationship to yoga, because he put these hooks in us that we were getting the highest teaching that ever existed. It had always been secret, and it was separate from Hatha Yoga. It's created a lot of confusion since then. So a lot of people now want to rebrand. So I am totally okay with people calling things to explain whatever they're doing in the class that day or the workshop. Like if you're doing gentle yoga, call it gentle yoga. If you're doing more advanced postures or whatever kind of fancy creative name, I have no judgment about that. My only question that I really would like people to contemplate and try to work with is, how can we put yoga back where it went astray, where Yogi Bhajan led us on a false path? So if you look, Yogi Bhajan came 1968, 1969 is where he really started his work. At that point, he was saying that he was teaching Kundalini openly and it had always been secret before. Now, it's not a total lie. I've worked with some Tibetan Buddhists who do yoga practices that actually look very similar to some of the things Yogi Bhajan does, and you'll find in a lot of teachings, especially from the region of India where Yogi Bhajan came from, there were secret teachings. There's a lot of secret teachings, but the yoga being shared openly started as soon as books started. Kundalini was being talked about and shared as soon as TV was out. It was very misleading that it was a huge secret and he was letting it all out. So even if we look at Western yoga in America, 1968, 1969, who had already come here and was teaching a form of yoga? So this is my main point I wanted to make. Yogananda came. Kriya Yoga is a form of Kundalini. They're working directly with spinal currents, these bandhas and mudras, Mahamudra. They're using chakras. These are all things that relate to Kundalini Yoga. I practice Kriya Yoga, and some of my teachers say they could call it Kundalini Yoga, but they don't want to deal with all of the complications that come with that. If we look at Shivananda, coming from Swami Vishnudevananda, there was a whole system of Kundalini Yoga within they were offering based out of yogic shastras, like the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. And we can look at Yogi Amrita Sai, Kripalu Yoga. They were teaching Kundalini Yoga practices, part of the Hatha Yoga system. And there were also various smaller, not so well-known teachers, even before and around the time of Yogananda, back to the 20s, just small people in big cities. There was plenty of pranayama, breath of fire, but they didn't call it breath of fire. All these things were being taught and shared. So we really got duped when we were told that we were being given secret teachings. Now, I'm saying all this because if you look at Kripalu or the work of Yogi Amrit Desai, if you look at Swami Vishnu Devananda, if we look at Yogananda, all of them predating Yogi Bhajan coming to America, there's a lot of similarities in their teachings. There's not a huge disagreement. There's also not all of these, the use of the word Kriya like Yogi Bhajan uses it is very unique. So we can look at these things, and if we go back to the origins of yoga, even when it was coming into the United States, and then we can go to Indian scholars and learn from them about their system. We need to understand what an acharya is, what a pundit is, versus what a PhD is, an American or Western PhD, and how these people all have yogic knowledge, share it. We need to understand what gurus are, swamis, how these people are sharing information, how there's a lot of depth and integrity in the yoga system that we can work with. So the reason I say that rebranding is dangerous is because Yogi Bhajan did a big rebrand, and now we could take his information and do a rebrand, which will then cause just more and more confusion about what the origins of yoga are. So I want to take this time to encourage all of my fellow Kundalini Yoga teachers to not go rebranding crazy. Go back to the origins of yoga. There is some consistency there. Now within that consistency, you'll also find variation because yoga was an experiential practice. So we won't always find the dynamic movements like we do in Kundalini Yoga, but in some traditions, they're there and they're similar. And it's not considered wrong or inappropriate for a teacher to modify the system, but the teacher should be master level. They should have been working at it for 20, 30 years with a really good teacher that helped them really get it. Now, in the Kundalini Yoga world in America today, we have a lot of resistance to this idea that we need to work with master teachers. We think everything's going to be open source. So if you want to learn how to do carpentry, it's good to hang out with a carpenter. If you want to learn how to dance, it's good to hang out with a master dancer. So this isn't going away in the yoga world. I've heard some people saying that the spiritual master is no longer. The spiritual master will continue. And we will need to go to people who are adepts at yoga and meditation. And another one of the big misnomers that has been going on in Yogi Bhajan's system of yoga is that anybody can get into any practice. There's no levels. So if you want to get really good at meditation, there are levels that you have to ascend through. You have to get good enough at meditation before you can go on to the next level, or the deck of cards will fall. It's like building a house upside down. So this is why I discontinued doing Kundalini Yoga, because I was an enthusiastic practitioner. I was practicing a lot, but I was just getting really misguided information, so I couldn't go into deeper states. I just was getting more and more Pitta and Vata agitated with too much heavy breath work. And now I feel like I'm actually learned how to still myself, and I can go into silence and peace of mind quickly. So all of this is just a general ramble, but my main point is we need to not rebrand, not recreate, except for expressing to general public what they might be getting in a class, and we need to go back to the origins of yoga, learn about the yogic scriptures, and learn about how yoga has traditionally been shared throughout the ages, because there is a system. It's confusing when we've been indoctrinated, though. It took me a long time to unwind this, and like I said, I've been working on this since 2004, 2005, and now here I am. So thank you all for taking time to listen to this. I hope it's going to help you and inspire you to study up on the origins of classical yoga and how it relates to Kundalini, how it relates to Hatha Yoga. Hatha Yoga and Kundalini Yoga are non-different. This is another one. This is the huge confusion Yogi Bhajan brought to us. Kundalini Yoga is just a brand that he created, and he did a really good job at it. But if you go and you need to read the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, it explains all of the Kundalini Yoga procedures, which you use after you have mastered asana, or to help deepen your asana. And all of this is working towards Raja Yoga, which is stilling the mind, which is explained in the Yoga Sutras. So we use Hatha Yoga to bring the body into stillness, and then the mind starts to get still. And then we learn to work with the mind from there. So there is a definite system, and I hope that you can utilize it. And again, thank you for listening to me ramble. Peace and namaste.